What is always coming through in the channeled messages is this pure love that wants us to be happy and healthy and whole and integrated and on our journeys and having the internal wisdom to follow so that we're not insecure and doubting ourselves and operating from such a place of fear. So it feels like peace, it feels like space, it feels like love, it feels like hope, it feels like humor.
A common question a lot of people have, like, how do I distinguish my intuition from my fears, my projections, and the internal chatter in our mind? Because that can just impede our ability to figure out what our inner wisdom is trying to tell us.
If and when I can get the resolve to just show up with an open heart and listen to what's beyond instead of just what my mind is tracking and putting into very familiar categories that it's done for time endless. There's more there. There's peace there. There's love there. And it's just incredible when you can experience even just a moment of it. If we're in our own internal feedback loop, we're not actually learning. We're just repeating beliefs that we've probably had for most of our lives. That's not useful when we're trying to tap into what's here for our wisdom and what our guidance wants us to know. When you can sit across from someone and just witness and be witnessed, wow, it does make me cry. There's nothing like it.
There is absolutely nothing like it, for sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dreamcatcher podcast, a place where your dreams can find a voice. I'm your host, Celine Chenoy. Thank you to all of you who return every week to tune in to become a better version of yourself. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already, and rate our show if you enjoyed this episode. We all possess the incredible gift of intuitive wisdom, yet many struggle to harness it effectively. My guest, Stephanie Banks, is passionate about helping us connect with our higher selves through specific practices and mindsets. She's here to guide us on the journey to becoming the best versions of ourselves. Stephanie Banks is a highly sought-after intuitive channel, mentor, and guide who helps people connect on the soul level. She mentors clients in discerning their own inner voice of wisdom, enhancing their confidence and self-trust, improving their relationships, clarifying their soul's purpose, and finding their laughter and joy. Stephanie is the author of the bestseller, Joining Joanie, Staying Connected to Your Loved One Through Dementia and Beyond. In her TED Talk, I Am an Intuitive Channel, she shares her unexpected experience with channeling and invites others to discover their own intuitive gifts. In this interview, Stephanie will share insights into the practice of channeling, helping us learn to identify our inner voice while filtering out the distractions that hinder us. She will also offer advice on how to connect with the energies of others so that we can build deeper and more meaningful relationships. Hi, Stephanie. How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you doing? I'm so excited to be on this show with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. And I really am looking forward to doing a deep dive into the whole subject of channeling and connecting with our intuitive wisdom. And from what I've seen in your work, it's very clear that you truly embody this practice. Interestingly, you actually started out as a speech pathologist where you focused on communication disorders. So I want to start out by asking you how that particular field, how that shaped your understanding of intuition, human connection, and the process of channeling.
Wow, that is an awesome question. So I feel that I was called to the field of speech pathology because I have a passion for communication in general, whether it's written or verbal or even telepathic for that nature. So I really wanted to support people who had had some sort of interruption in their brain function that made it difficult for them to communicate. So I went into that field, and it was wonderful. And while I was still working as a speech pathologist, I had the opportunity to personally experience a family member who was going through a disruption in their brain's function. It was my mom, and she was diagnosed with dementia. And her diagnosis occurred, well, her symptoms started when she was in her 50s. So, really quite young for what people usually think of as those who are afflicted with dementia. And I had an opportunity to choose, am I going to approach this situation with my mom as a clinician with all of the clinical information I have and way of interacting with patients, or am I going to play the daughter and maintain that emotional and deeper connection with her? And I tried the clinical hat out. It didn't go very well. My mother wasn't the best patient, and we had this history together, right, of this complicated mother-daughter relationship. Loving, yes, but also complicated. And so I was bridging the gap of what I knew to be helpful that might support her in being able to communicate more clearly, and then trying to plan ahead for what I anticipated was going to be the continual loss of her communication and cognition function. So the background in speech pathology really helped me to understand sort of the full picture of it. But my role as daughter really supported me in maintaining and establishing really our soul connection. So that's what was my journey into channeling. It really wasn't from the speech pathology aspect. It was from having a best friend who could channel souls that were on the planet. And I asked her to channel my mom's soul for me so I could figure out how we can have a healthy relationship for the remainder of her journey here in the body.
Thank you for sharing that. So it seems like your mom opened up a new door for you in terms of your career and also discovering that this gift you have within you.
Yes, which I think we all have, because at the time I asked my friend to channel my mom, I was quite convinced there's no way I would ever be able to channel. She did it for me for years until I got good enough or studied enough to try it out for myself. So if I can learn it, anyone can learn it. So now I teach it.
Why did you think that you did not have that ability?
Like most people I speak with, we are told or taught, whether this is culture or religion or fear, that only a select few people walking about can connect to souls. Only a few people have some kind of a specialized gift, and the rest of us just have to rely on them for that gift to do that type of communication or connection for us. I don't believe that now. I used to, but I don't anymore, because I have seen for myself that this is something that if you want to learn it and you are willing to devote the hours of time and practice to it, you can.
That's very encouraging. I'd love to dig deep into that later on, but I want to start out with the basics. For the listeners out there who don't really know what channeling is, could you tell us a little bit about it and what it entails?
Yes. So the way I define it is channeling is simply connecting to divine energy and wisdom, divine wisdom. And that's not something that's outside of us where we have to, go externally and retrieve it and bring it back. It's actually what's within us. So if we can get to that quiet place and that still, very still place of deeper listening, that information and that access is within every one of us, and we can connect to it. And that really is channeling. And there's so many different ways to channel. So I do it verbally. I bring in messages and speak the messages out loud. But art is a form of channeling, and writing is a form of channeling, and music is a form of channeling, and dance, all of these ways that we connect to our divine energy is channeling. And we are these powerful, beautiful little channels in these bodies walking about, looking for ways to access deeper meaning and to have more joy. And that's what channeling is to me.
So what are we channeling essentially? Like, what is the source of all this inspiration and wisdom that we get?
Well, we actually have to select that because we certainly have a variety of options, right? There's a buffet of energy that we can choose from. I choose to stay in the fifth dimensional consciousness. So that's unity consciousness. It's pure love. It's high vibration. It's the purest of in terms of what I have access to channeling. But there are plenty of people who are bringing in different frequencies. It all just depends on what you want to do with your channeling. What I want to do is to uplift and to allow for others to see a clearer path for themselves that is in service to the highest good. And so I have learned the techniques to maintain myself in that higher vibration so that I can, whatever comes through is a close vibrational match or above of where I'm at. So, but there's a lot of fear that we're fed, as you well know, in the outer world. And there are people for whom that they are embodying and repeating that. So you have your options on what you channel, what frequency you tune into. And I recommend being really mindful about that and doing the practices and caring and loving for yourself in the ways that will allow for you to channel from the highest frequency. But we can channel souls that are here on the planet and hear from them. We can channel souls on the other side, ancestors and loved ones that are no longer in their body. We can channel your spirit guides. We have a vast network of energetic beings that support us on our journeys. You have guides that support you in your podcast. I have guides that support me in my channeling work and in my parenting and in my everything. So there's a lot of directions we can go in.
You mentioned that we should be cautious about what frequency we're channeling from. So a person who is channeling from a low vibe, like a lower frequency, or their intentions are not good, are there serious repercussions to that? Have you seen anyone do that, and what happens?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen it as in been present when fear is being channeled, but I have a number of clients that have come to my work and said, please help me with this. I just saw someone who told me all of these scary things. So we kind of peel away what that situation was, and I'll channel from the higher vibrational perspective of what's going on, which gives a more easeful and peaceful and joyful perspective. But yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily people are intentionally channeling negativity. It's that most people are not as aware of their internal state. And so the vibration that we naturally carry, if you're not aware and you're not in a practice, whether it's meditation or being in service or whatever will lighten and lift your heart and support you, then you just don't you don't have the understanding that that's the energy you're putting out in the world. So a lot of this is fear that's being almost recycled if you're channeling from a denser energy. And there's a lot of dense fear-based energy out there. It's in social media feeds, it's in the news, it's in politics, it's in conversations, right? This is what a lot of us are being fed on a regular basis. So it's perfectly understandable that it would be absorbed.
Mm. So we have to engage in that practice of self-care and being really mindful of the energies that we're absorbing so that we are channeling at that highest frequency.
I believe so. Yes, absolutely.
So you mentioned that we're all capable of channeling and connecting with other people's energy. But what does it feel like, Stephanie, to channel? Like, what is that sensation like? How do we know what's happening?
Yeah. It is different for everybody. So I'll speak to what it is internally for me. I feel as though the me that is in personality is stepping out of the way and giving some room and space and lending my voice and articulators to whatever loving messages wants to come through from the energy or the soul or the guides that I'm tuning into. So when I'm channeling, my eyes are closed. I am seeing imagery. Words are flowing through. They are coinciding so that I'm able to understand kind of a full picture of what's happening and what the guides or the energy wants to convey to my client. And there is love, I would say. I think most of us have had the experience of just love, whether it's from another, whether it's from source or creator, or moments where we have just felt deeply loved. And that's what is always coming through in the channeled messages, is this pure love that wants us to be happy and healthy and whole and integrated and on our journeys, and having the internal wisdom to follow so that we're not insecure and doubting ourselves and operating from such a place of fear. So it feels like peace, it feels like space, it feels like love, it feels like hope, it feels like humor. That's what I feel.
Interesting. For me personally, it comes out as like a flash of insight. I suddenly
Mhm.
get the sense of knowing, and it usually happens when I'm just going about my day. It's like suddenly just something strikes me, and I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. And sometimes they almost seem prophetic. It happens every now and then. Like I can figure out what people are going to say, or I can even like foresee what people are going to talk about. It's happened to me a couple of times, but that usually comes to me when I'm detached, or when I'm just not too focused on a certain matter, or I have some distance from it. That's how it works for me personally.
Yeah, exactly. You're describing like you've stepped out of the way in a manner of speaking, because you're not focusing on anything necessarily, but you're available. And yes, absolutely. That's when those insights and that guidance can come through. Some of my best intuitive guidance comes in the shower, comes when I'm driving,
Yeah, yeah.
comes when
There's
I'm
something
in
about the
some sort
shower.
of other act. Yes, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's very personal. It can come in different ways to everybody, and they just have to recognize how it feels for them and really take note
Yeah,
of it
well,
when it happens.
absolutely. You can notice a difference in frequency of the intuition you're talking about versus fear, right? So the egoic mind wants to keep us safe. We're very grateful for that. And so it will foresee or anticipate what problems could be coming. And that energy feels tight, constricted, like we almost want to pull away a little bit. But the frequency of intuition and the energy you're talking about come just the knowing. You described it beautifully. It's just a knowing. It's warm, it's deep, it's safe. And I call it like spaciousness around it. We're not in any desire to bump up against it and try to argue with it. It's just so. It's just what is. So they do have a very different feel, and that's how we can know what's the guidance and what's the fear.
Yeah, because that is a common question a lot of people have. Like, how do I distinguish my intuition from my fears, my projections, and the internal chatter in our mind? Because that can just impede our ability to really figure out what our inner wisdom is trying to tell us. So, how do we make that distinction?
Well, you can feel the difference usually in your body. For different people, they feel it in different areas. I feel most of this in my heart when something
Yeah,
is
me
just,
too.
yeah, is just truth. Oftentimes it will come through that heart space. For some people, it's the gut, some people it's the solar plexus area. Get to know where your body signals your truth. And that's worth studying and getting attuned to and practicing. And in terms of how we access it more frequently, it's practice. That just like anything, if you want to develop yourself as a more intuitive and trusting your inner wisdom, then you need to engage in practices that will help you tap into that. So meditation is one. Time in nature is another. Nature has a beautiful way of just bringing us into the present moment, right? And showing us miracles everywhere we look, and harmony, and how animals don't need to be taught anything and they're not thinking anything. They're just being and doing, as are plants. Adequate sleep is necessary. I know that if I'm low on sleep, I'm not going to feel as clear intuitively as when I'm well rested. Hydration, high vibrational food, care for your body. Exercise is essential, I believe, because we have to move energy out of our bodies. Otherwise, we're just these sponges absorbing. I am a sponge absorbing all of the intensity and density of the outer world. That doesn't go so well for me. So there's anything we can do in service to beautiful self-love, self-compassion, and self-care is going to serve you as an intuitive being.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the upcoming launch of my new book titled The Nomadic Soul, a seeker's guide to finding a sense of self and belonging in the modern world, which highlights a profound yet often unexplored part of your identity that holds the key to everything from answering your biggest questions to finding deeper meaning and joy in everyday life. Visit thenomadicsoulbook.com to learn more, download a free chapter, or to buy a copy. What if we're very attached to a certain situation or an outcome, Stephanie? Because that's when it gets really challenging because we want things to work out a certain way. And we're like, it's difficult to really tap into our guidance because we have a tendency to project what we want to see in the world when we're so fixated on things working out a certain way. So what do you advise your clients in such situations?
Yeah, this is a big one because we all have attachments, and I don't believe we're going to rid ourselves of them, try as we might. So, when I'm teaching people, for example, one of the things that I teach in my classes a lot is I teach people how to start with using a pendulum for answers that, yes or no answers, and we take it further. And I always tell them, if you have any attachment to a response, don't ask it as your Lord, right?
Yeah.
Because, and I joke, but I'll say, don't hold your pendulum and say, should I marry Charlie? Because you're not going to be able to separate yourself
Yeah, it's
from,
too difficult.
right? It's too hard. And we're
Yeah.
human, so we're going to have attachment. In those situations where you recognize I'm not neutral here, not even close to neutral here, either have someone else, a mentor or someone who's trusted, who knows you, or can attune to you, support you in this and give you feedback, because I feel like we oftentimes, if we're in our own internal feedback loop, we're not actually learning, we're just repeating beliefs that we've probably had for most of our lives. That's not useful when we're trying to tap into what's here for our wisdom and what our guidance wants us to know. So get some support, get some help. And the way you ask for guidance, especially like if in the example of using a pendulum, instead of saying, should I marry Charlie? What you can say is, does it serve my highest good to remain in this relationship with Charlie?
Oh,
That's a total
that's
yes.
that tweak makes all the difference.
All the difference, because that's actually all we ever really need to know. What is in the service to the highest good for yourself and for all involved? And you can get those answers much more clear when you know how to language the questions.
Oh, I love that. I personally love reading tarot cards and oracle
Mhm.
cards. Those serve as a huge source of guidance for me, and I'm able to channel a lot when I use them. But they are challenging to use when I am attached to a certain outcome, and it's like, no, that's not what I want to see. Yeah,
Exactly. I'll just pick another card. That must
I'll
have been
just
the wrong.
pick another card, and I'll get all yeah,
I've
it
done
just
that.
yeah, I'll get all constricted, and I'm like, oh no, no. It's
Yeah. Yeah, and then the fearful mind takes over and comes up with worst case
Exactly.
scenarios. It's a mess.
Yeah,
We
it's
are.
a mess. I personally experienced it, and I found a way to do away with that by hiring a reader whenever I need that support, and
That's
then
right.
an objective person to help me see the situation in a
That's
more
right. There,
detached
absolutely. I
way.
mean, I love having people channel for me. I love having a team, others that I can rely upon because I only know such a limited amount based on my limited experience here as a human in this lifetime. So yeah, that's why we have all these helpers around.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I heard you speak about in your TED Talk is about generating the right brain waves to tap into our intuition. I found that very interesting. Tell us more about that. How does that work?
Yeah. So what I'm getting at in that and in the big, the body of work that I teach and study is we have two hemispheres of our brain. We have a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. The left hemisphere is logic, problem solving. It's linear, time oriented. And it's great, right? And it's really robust in most cultures because most cultures that I'm familiar with value the left hemispheric thinking, the logical mind. Then we have the right side, the right hemisphere, and it is creative, receptive, playful, intuitive. And that, at least in the culture I'm most familiar with, is underutilized. And so we have a very well utilized left hemisphere with logic and a less utilized right hemisphere with creativity and intuition and playfulness, and this is an imbalance. When I'm channeling, I am using the right hemisphere. It is not something that this is not logic that I'm tuning to. It's intuition, it's spirit, it's that it's the vastness of all, which is what the right hemisphere is really wonderful with. It's really gifted with being able to assist us in tuning into that. So I like to teach people that difference and that our left hemisphere doesn't need any more work. It's usually great. We don't have to practice more of that, but the right hemisphere does need more opportunities to grow, to become strengthened. Art is a way to do that. Any creative pursuit you can think of will help that right hemisphere. And meditation and seeing, visualizations, etc. All of this comes from that creative aspect of the right hemisphere. So that's what I'm referring to with the right brain, left brain sort of thing.
And it seems like our education system is, it's set up in a way to completely train just the left side of the brain. Like we don't, it's like that's the muscle that they focus on building the most. And it's no wonder that we're sort of lagging with the other side and why it's something that doesn't come naturally to us.
You're absolutely right. And it's sad because children, when left to their own nature, they're very intuitive
Oh,
and
yeah.
enormously creative. And kids can see spiritual presence a lot of times and say, like, no, I see grandpa over there. Even though he's not alive anymore. Yeah, he came to visit me, or he's right there hovering about talking. Kids will say this
I
and
know.
that's their
Yeah.
experience. It's beautiful. So yeah, it gets squashed out of us from a very young age.
Yeah, I remember that TED Talk with Ken Robinson, where he talks about how schools kill creativity. And the people just think that all of this, like tapping into our intuition and, going into that space might be a bit woo-woo. So
Oh
I'm sure you
yeah.
come across that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of conditioning. I think maybe you were
Conditioning,
looking
that's
for
the
that
word.
word.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, there's social conditioning, societal conditioning, religious conditioning, and depending on what you're exposed to and how much of it a lot of us are taught to fear channeling, right? Like, oh, I have a dear friend. I love her so much. And because of her religious background and fearful orientation to certain things, she prays for my safety all the time, knowing that I channel because she's
Okay.
worried that, yeah, I mean, I'll take it. Thank you. Anyone that wants to pray for me, of course, I receive that. But it's, her worry is fear that, of darkness or what she has been exposed to in her religious beliefs and upbringing. So yeah, this is, I acknowledge that this is hard for some people to find their way to safety within, and yet it is the essence of all of us. It's the beauty of being a soul, having a human experience, is this spiritual aspect of us, which is perfectly beautiful.
To your friend's point, is it important to protect ourselves from negative energies that might kind of uh, impact us while we are channeling?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, definitely. And it's not because there's some evil lurking trying to grab onto us. I'm not trying to give that image at all. But just like you wouldn't engage in a lengthy conversation in a small space with a person who you feel really uncomfortable with, or who is enraged or angry or just not stable, also I believe I don't want to leave myself open to whatever energy happens to be around at any time. So I call it energetic hygiene, and I feel like we have, all of us, an individual responsibility to have the energetic hygiene that we can. And so even if I'm going somewhere in public, actually especially when I'm going out in public, I will ask my guides of protection to just bubble me, just surround me, deflect whatever is not in service to my highest good, let it bounce off, fall away. I do this before I go grocery shopping. I do this before I go to dense venues where there's going to be a ton of people, because I do happen to be highly, highly sensitive to the
Yeah,
energies of others.
same here.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. We have to.
Yeah.
Do you do
Yeah.
something to protect yourself?
I actually only do that when I know I'm going to encounter someone who's a bit iffy, who I feel like who may not have my best
Mm.
have best intentions at heart. So that's when I do it.
Yeah.
But I think I need to do it more often because my gym tends to get really crowded. And when I'm there and it's like a lot of people, the music's really loud and it can drain me. Like, so
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, I think it's really smart for us to do it just kind of across the board. And the other thing is we have guides that do this for us. So tell them, like they're sitting here waiting for instructions. And I always tell people, you want bored spirit guides, so give them their tasks, ask them, thank them. They do support us and protect us and surround us and give us this sense, I feel, a greater sense of well-being. Once I do that quick process or have a quick conversation with them, I feel like I can expand my own energy field more easily and even take up more space, because it's loving space, and go on into that Costco or grocery store and find what I need and leave, and my heart feels lighter. And you're right, it's very draining when we absorb a lot. It's very draining.
Yeah. So we need that extra layer of protection when we go out to those really crowded
I
places.
Yeah, I find it really helpful. I also find it
Yeah.
helpful to have a crystal nearby where I can just, clear myself, or use Palo Santo or use sage to clear energy. That's a regular thing I think is really very helpful.
One of the gifts of having a finely attuned intuition is the ability to really connect with others on a deeper level, and enhance our relationship with them in the process. So, tell us a bit about that. How can we use the gift of intuition to connect with others in a more profound way?
Yeah. Well, I learned in the example with my mother that when I let go of how our personalities were interacting with each other, so me getting frustrated at her behaviors or her impatience or her forgetfulness or her, the changes in personality she was experiencing, was not allowing me to connect with her on that deeper level, on that soul level. And when I peel that away and my only interest was, I just want to stay connected, then what became illuminated for me was what her immediate needs were in that moment, which most of the time her needs were the exact match for mine. She just wanted to stay connected. She didn't know how, and she couldn't use what used to work for her by her verbal communication or, what was familiar, because those pathways in her brain were breaking apart. But we had this soul ability to connect with each other, which means that you can sit in silence with someone and have a level of understanding that transcends anything you could find words for. And so if you're willing to, just kind of get more quiet, get more still, reach out, take the person's hand, agree to just sit in a space of silence, maybe before you talk about something difficult, or just have that be the entirety of the connection. It's really gorgeous to have that experience. And when we are willing to do that, to lay down what we think we know of another person, or our assumptions, or the way our relationship has been structured up until that point, you have no idea how vast the space between you can be and how much love it can hold. That's what I found with my mom when I was willing to let go of that. So I know we have, all of us, very complicated, sticky relationships in our lives. I honor that. I'm no different. And if and when I can get the resolve to just show up with an open heart and listen to what's beyond, instead of just what my mind is tracking and putting into very familiar categories that it's done for time endless, there's more there. There's peace there. There's love there. And it's just incredible when you can experience even just a moment of it.
That's beautiful. As you were speaking, I was just picturing like an elderly couple who have been together for a really long time and who are really happy together. They have that sense of familiarity, and they're just holding each other's hands. They're walking down a park. I kind of conjured up that image, and they don't even need to speak to each other. There's this understanding and this love that's between them that's been built over the years, and I think they're able to feel that with each other because of all the time that they've spent together.
Yes, that is the perfect image. And we don't have to wait till we're elderly. We can
Yeah, but
start to
that's just what
practice
came to
it.
mind because when you were
No, it's
describing the feeling, I was
perfect.
like, I've seen that between those couples. And I've
Me
always
too.
admired them, like, wow, I want that, not just with, a partner, but with my family or with a friend. That's just beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is. And it's the perfect image too, because we've all seen those couples and felt like, oh yeah, I want what they have. It's a gorgeous thing to witness. And we can practice that through more silence. We tend to fill the space with words and words and words and words. And then that gets us all bunched up and caught up in the narrative. But when we give some stillness and quiet and allow for the hearts to do what they know how to do, which is to connect, then yeah, it's really endless how much you can feel the goodwill, the compassion, the kindness of another.
Yeah, there was this exhibit in New York where this lady just sat on a table. Like she just sat down and people were allowed to just come and sit across her and just stare at her eyes for a few minutes. And this happened like for a few days, and every time a person walked out, they had like tears in their eyes or they're really emotional because they were able to connect so deeply just by looking at each other, like and looking into each other's soul. I don't remember the name of the lady, but I'm sure if you look it up, you you'll you'll see how it all played out. But that was something that really struck me. The fact that she was able to make people cry just by looking at them and just being completely open and available.
I am familiar with that. It gives me the chills to hear you talk about it. Yeah. And we can do that with each other. It's like this is soul communication when you can sit across from someone and just witness and be witnessed Wow. And yeah, it does make me cry. I've had those
Yeah.
moments with loved one, right? There's nothing like
Yes.
it.
Yes, there is absolutely nothing like it, for sure. Well, Stephanie, this discussion has been really eye-opening. I appreciate you sharing this tool with all of us, which we can all use to live a more aligned and meaningful life. It was a pleasure to learn from you.
Thank you, Celine. You too. I appreciate your work in the world and your soul being present here during this time.
Thank you for saying that. So I just want to let everyone know that if you want to learn more about Stephanie's books, courses, events, and her session, be sure to visit soulinsight.com. The link will be in the description.